I know that in Winthrop, Mike Eruzione needs no introduction. Everyone knows Mike. But I'm honored to have him come. I have to say, I read the book when it came out in 2019 because I had asked Mike to come to the library in 2020 to do a book signing. But we all know what happened in March of 2020. And here's my flyer from then. March 18th, 2020, didn't happen. But we're grateful that you're all here with us tonight. And please welcome Mike Eruzione.
Okay, so why did I write a book? I didn't want to. It was really pretty interesting how this whole thing came about. I got a call from a guy named Neil Bodette who wrote the book with me, and he wanted to do a book about the '80 Olympic team. So I said, let me ask the guys. And almost every one of my teammates said, no, I'm not interested in a book about the '80 Olympic team. So I said, well, nobody wants to. We're not doing a book. So he goes, why don't you write a book? I said, I don't want to write a book. I said, if you write a book, you got to go to book signings, you got to go see people, you got to travel around the country. I said, I like kind of being quiet, being by myself, and I don't need the aggravation. So I thought about it, and my wife said, you know what, why don't you write the book? I think you should do that. I think it would be fun. Well, we turned out and decided to do the book. And I wrote the book for one reason, and I think I say it in the book, is I want my grandkids to know that Papa's life wasn't one game or one goal or one moment. I want my grandkids to know about their grandparents, their cousins, their aunts and uncles and cousins, why our family, I think, is pretty special. I want them to understand the value of a good family. And I think I was fortunate in my life, not only just growing up in here, but to have great relatives, great cousins, great aunts, uncles. In the house that I lived in, which I live 2 houses from now, nothing's really changed for me, other than a lot more people know me now than they used to. But we had a great tour. We did a lot of cities around the country, and the book was doing really well, and it actually did do extremely well. It became a bestseller. But COVID hit, so there was no more traveling, which I kind of liked. I didn't have to go anywhere now. People, we did our cities. We did New York, we did LA, we did all those places. But it was important, I think, when I thought about it, was to kind of tell my story. Growing up in this town, how I ended up at Boston University, which was strange circumstances. If you read the book, you'll see that, and we can maybe talk about that. But I even thought, that there's probably a lot of kids out there that are like me, looking for an opportunity, looking for a break at some point in their life. And I was fortunate and blessed to get it after a year of prep school to end up at Boston University. If I had never played in that summer league game, I never would have gone to BU, and I clearly wouldn't have made the Olympic team. And then if John Ferguson never got fired from the New York Rangers, I would have probably signed with the Rangers and turned pro and not been able to play in the Olympic team because I had been a professional. So a lot of things happened in my life because of an opportunity. And I think, I talk about that all the time. All of us get opportunities in our life. It's what you do with the opportunity. And I was given an opportunity and was fortunate to take it to a level I never would have imagined it would become. But again, that's the basics behind the book, and I am actually in the process of thinking about, Neil talking about writing a children's book. So I'm thinking about doing something like that, because if you saw the mail I get, it's, they've seen the movie Miracle, so everybody wants, everybody kind of knows me. And my grandson, we were in Lake Placid a few weeks ago. I opened a store up in Lake Placid, and the grandkids came, and they were the first grandkids to skate on the rink from the 1980 team. The video cameras were there, and they were filming everything. And my grandson comes up to me and says, "Papa," he goes, "you're famous." I'm not famous. And they skated, at the Mike Eruzione Center for years, and they didn't know who Mike Eruzione was. I was Papa, and I remember years ago, it might have been 4 years ago, I brought him to a BU hockey game because they love to watch BU play. It happened to be, we were playing Arizona State, and Mario Lemieux, one of my close friends, his son was playing for Arizona State at the time. So Mario came up to the game with his wife and his kids. So I said to my grandson, Michael, who's now 10, so what was he? He might have been 7 at the time, maybe 6. I said, we're going to go to the BU hockey game. He goes, Papa, I love going to BU games. I said, yeah, we're going to go to the game. We're going to go to a big boy restaurant. And he goes, what's a big boy restaurant? I said, the Capitol Grill. He goes, can I get a big boy drink? And I said, what's that? He goes, Coca-Cola. I said, absolutely. Get all the Coca-Cola you want. So we walk into Boston University's arena, and people stop me like they normally do, take a picture, sign something. So my grandson said to my wife, why do people want to take Papa's picture? And she goes, well, he went to school here and he's pretty popular here. Well, the game's over and people must have knew Mario was there. So we walk out of the suite that we're in, there's about 10 kids waiting for Mario Lemieux. And he's taking pictures and stopping. And my grandson says, him too? And, he was a little better player than Papa was. So I think, like I said, I think part of the book for me was for my grandkids to know about the history of our family and growing up in this special town. Like I said it the other day, I brought people here. I just had my golf tournament there the other day. Guys came from all across the country to play in it, and we played 9 holes at the Winthrop golf course, which was an absolute trip for them. And then we went to the Arms for dinner. Then we toured, went by the beach and the whole thing, and they just look at me and say, "This place is unbelievable." I've told people for years, it's a hidden gem. Unfortunately, people are discovering the town. But it's a special place, and it's always been a special place for me, and I'm fortunate to live here and have my kids live here. Although my son Michael moved to Connecticut because his wife wanted to be near her family, and I'm like, who moves to be near their family? Meanwhile, Bowden Street and Thornton Parker, the whole family lives up. My son bought the house behind me, and Leanda's down the street. Coach Rusilla lives 2 houses away. His son lives next door to him. My brother Vinny lives down the street. My sister lives down the street. I remember my son Paul, his senior year in high school baseball team, of the starting 9, 6 of them. The first 6 batters came out of the 3 family that I grew up in. We were either Fusillo, a Mayotte, a Bro, or an Eruzione playing on the high school baseball team. And I'm looking at my brother and I said, now you know why everybody hates us. There are 6 batters, are relatives. So, maybe open the floor for some questions. People want to ask me anything. I'll be happy to answer any questions. If you just hear from me to sign the book, I'll be more than happy to do that as well.
And I met you at TV Garden about 4 or 5 years ago, and I told you that I was going to move to Winthrop, and you said, Gerard, it's a hidden gem.
It is, yes.
Like, when Doug Flutie threw that pass and the kid that caught it, he didn't even know he caught it with his arm. When you scored that goal, did you know that you scored it? Or was
I didn't know it went in until I saw the kid in the stands jump up behind, because I was screened by the defenseman. It's amazing how many, and I'm not that smart a guy, but I guess on the ice I was pretty smart. And it's amazing how many things go through your mind at a split second. And I get the puck, and there's a defenseman in front of me, and I'm thinking if he stays, I'm going to use him as a screen. If he comes at me, there was 2 of my teammates breaking to the left. He stayed, and I shot it, and because I was going across my body, I pulled it just a little. So I wasn't sure, I thought it went in, but I wasn't 100% sure until I saw the people in the back jump up. And then obviously, it gave us the lead. There was 10 minutes left to play. You play against the Soviets, they could score 10 goals in 10 minutes. But it's funny, I've only seen the game 3 times, and I saw it like 2 years ago. Someone always asks me, how come you don't see the game? I said, the last thing I want to be is home and one of my buddies walks in and I'm watching the game. Let it go, Mike, it's over. So when I saw it, what amazed me was in the last 10 minutes of the game, the Soviets had 6 shots on goal. But if you watch the movie Miracle, it's like they had 100 shots. Save, save, save. And I'm like, I don't remember it that way. But again, a lot of people forget if we don't win Sunday against Finland, we're not having this conversation. I'm not writing a book. I'm not, I'd still be living in Winthrop. I'd be married to the same girl, or maybe I'd have more than 3 kids. Who knows? But the Finland game was the biggest game for us. Imagine 10 years later, 40 years later, someone coming up and saying, damn, if you only could have beat Finland. That was a great game against the Soviets, but if you only could have beat Finland. So I think our team takes more pride. I mean, the Soviet game was big because it was the Soviets, but I think we take more pride in the fact that we closed the deal 2 days later.
Yeah.
And losing 2-1 going into the 3rd period, trailing throughout the Olympic Games, that was, we outscored our opponents in the 3rd period by a margin of 17-3, and that's an incredible number. So the conditioning and the speed of our team and the youth, we used it to our advantage. I mean, our Olympic team in 1980 would be the youngest team in college hockey today. Our average age was 22, and I was 25, and Buzzy Schneider was 25. We had 3 guys who were 18 years old. I didn't know how, they became great players, obviously, but I think we were a lot better than people thought. Clearly, you don't win a tournament without not being good. And a lot of things had to fall into place. You know, Jimmy played great in goal in games we needed him. And, you know, Mark Johnson, we don't win without Mark Johnson. You know, Mark, if we needed a goal, it would be like, Magic, we need something here. And I think he had 8 or 9 goals during the Olympics. So a lot of things that I think were disappointing to some degree is people didn't get to know all of my teammates because the media kind of captures, you know, me, I was the captain in the goal against the Soviets, and then Jimmy with his performance. When we watched the movie, it was funny, we went to LA for the premiere. We didn't know what the movie was going to be about. They didn't interview us, they didn't talk to us, we just went to the premiere. And we're watching the movie wondering where they're going with this whole movie. And we determined 3 things, that O'Callaghan played more in the movie than he did during the Olympics. Jimmy Craig made a lot of saves, but he didn't make that many saves. And John Harrington actually played better in the movie than he did during the games. So we watched the movie as a team, and Kenny Morrow, a great defenseman on our Olympic team, went from the Olympics to 4 straight Stanley Cups. I mean, that's unheard of. He's not even mentioned in the movie. So halfway through the movie in the premiere, Kenny stands up in the middle of the theater and he goes, "Was I even on this team?" It was just bizarre because, like I said, we didn't know what the movie was gonna be. I mean, I know you've seen it obviously a few times, but Kurt Russell was amazing as Herb Brooks. Actually, he was brilliant, but he was friendlier in the movie. Herb was a little more intense. And then in the movie, Herb's wife was in the movie, and I don't remember seeing her, you know, once during the year. So the movie's given us, our team, another generation of fans, which is, like I said, it's kind of fun. Yeah.
I was one of the few maybe that are alive now that saw you make that goal.
Wow.
And I just remember jumping off of the couch, and everybody that was with us, we screamed and yelled like we knew you, you know?
Right.
Now my grandson, AJ, is a elite hockey player that just came back from Chicago, representing the United States of America.
Oh, wow.
And the biggest thrill that I got was to see him stand on that blue line when they played the national anthem. I saw it on TV. And what was it like for you to play for the United States?
There's no greater feeling, you know, I've said this many times, other than being in the military, there's no greater feeling than putting a USA jersey on. And to do it in Lake Placid, you know, when I'm standing on the podium and they're raising the flag and everybody in the building is singing the Star Spangled Banner. It was so moving and emotional. At a time when, you know, some of you might remember 1980, it was almost as bad as what we're dealing with now.
Sure.
I mean, we could use a 1980 today,
Yes.
not for us, but
Exactly.
for just unity. And I remember it was the last Olympic Games, and whenever there's any controversy, you know, they kneel for the anthem or whatever, and I got the call when this actually happened, or it didn't happen. A woman said she hopes she makes the Olympic team so she can burn the flag on the podium. So Fox News calls me, and I'm saying, "This is a joke." They went, "No." I said, "No, come on, you're pulling my leg." And fortunately, she did not make the Olympic team. And you know, that's what we're dealing with sometimes in the mindset. I mean, if I didn't stand there with my hand over my heart, when I got home, my dad would. Yeah, well, he'd be serving time in jail now for just the way he taught us as kids. We were brought up, but it's a little different now.
For sure.
Yeah.
At the beginning of the little shots of all the things that were happening in the world at that time, and I was probably in my early 20s, and it was not cool to be waving a flag and all that for people in my generation. But that goal, that win, changed everything. Then, after that, it was okay to wave a
Yeah.
flag.
People come up to me and still do, depending on their age. I remember where I was on D-Day, I remember where I was when the Challenger blew up, I remember where I was when Kennedy got assassinated, I remember where I was on 9/11, and then they'll go, "I remember where I was when we won." And I'll go, I didn't know you were on the team. But that's, you know, all the events I hear all the time is tragic events, and then they bring up that moment. And,
It was great.
like I said, we didn't know. We weren't allowed to talk to the media. There were only 3 TV stations then. There was no internet. There was no Facebook, Twitter, whatever the hell you guys are on. I can't figure that out myself. But it was just, and we were in a little village in Lake Placid, a little cocoon. We were in a little cocoon, and we did not know it was that big a deal till we got out of Lake Placid. So we win the gold. This is funny. We win the gold medal on Sunday. Monday morning, we go to the White House to meet the president. And the streets were lined, 4, 5, 6 people deep with waving flags, and we're in the bus going to the White House. So we go to the White House, and it was like, wow, this thing was pretty big. We get on the plane. Now the other guys went back to Minnesota, me and O'Callahan and Silk went back to Boston. Eastern Airlines, okay, that's how long ago it was. We took the Eastern Airlines shuttle to Logan Airport. We get off the plane, and the whole airport was packed with people. And we were like, geez, this is a really big deal. Then I get in the car to go to Winthrop. East Boston streets were lined with people. And then I get in the over the bridge into town, and I went like, holy Christ, this was amazing. So I I'm home. My mother's making me dinner Monday night. I'm like, what just happened? Come back in the 3 family with my cousins, and we had the police out front because so many people were coming by. They were all in the street singing "God Bless America," and I came out on the patio. I was like the Pope. I just got home. I said, "Thank you for coming, but maybe let me spend some time with my family." And they just scattered. They all left. So now my mother's making me dinner. I get up the next morning to go to New York to do Good Morning America, and she's making me breakfast, and I'm like, "What just happened 2 days ago?" I'm back at my own house, being with my family. I had a limousine take me to the airport, again an Eastern Airlines shuttle. I got on the plane, and everybody in the plane started applauding. And I turned around, I didn't know who got on the plane. And it was like, wow, so the pilot said, you can't sit in the seat. And he said, people will be all over you, you can sit behind us, but don't tell anybody that you were sitting behind us, because you're not supposed to be here. I said, I ain't telling a soul. So I got off the plane, people waited, let me off first, and there was media and lights flashing at the terminal. And it was like, holy, this thing was, and it's 43 years later, it's still like, really? The phone calls I get, the messages, things that I've been able to do, people I've met with, it's been an incredible run. All good stuff. Other than when I played golf with President Trump, that didn't go well. The mail I got was incredible. The hate mail was unbelievable. One letter was addressed to asshole Eruzione. So I gave it to my wife. I said, this must be for you. This can't be for me. But everything has been fairly positive other than that one moment. Yeah.
I always wondered, what did Herb say to you when you got back to the bench after scoring that goal? I know he rode you guys hard. What was it like? He didn't say a word to you?
He never said, after we beat the Soviets to win, he never said, good game, congratulations.
No.
After we beat Finland to win the gold medal, he never said, way to go, congratulations. He stayed true to form.
The whole time?
The whole time. He never wavered. And that was his intention. It was good cop, bad cop. He was going to be the SOB. He was going to be the demander, coach. And Craig Patrick was the good guy. Part of the reason was there were 12 kids in the team from Minnesota, 9 that played at the University of Minnesota. So he had to make sure he couldn't show favorites. And he coached all these kids. So he stayed true to form right from the beginning to the end. I think he would love to have been close to us. But he decided that he was just going to step away and let us enjoy all the success. And I remember after one of the games, there was the media, like a process like this, and he was there, and somebody said, where are the team? When's it? And he goes, my team players will not be coming to the press conferences. And the guy from the European guy said, well, is that because you want all the glory yourself? And Herb said, if that's the case, I'm not coming either. And he turned and walked out, and he sent our assistant coaches to the media conferences after. So he, like I said, he stayed pretty true to what he was. But you know what? I tell kids this today, that's how coaches coached in the 70s. I played under Bob DeFelice. Jack Parker was a demanding, challenging coach. Jimmy Evans, my baseball coach. They challenged you every single day. Paul O'Brien was my high school hockey coach. That's how it was. You deal with it. You can quit. I ain't quit. You can yell at me all you want. I go home and tell my father he yelled at me. He's going to yell at me again. So it was a very different time. So you understood that's the way it was going to be. And he made us better players, made us better people. The values that he taught us, and I've said this many times, the same values that my dad taught me. If you believe in yourself and you work hard, good things can happen. And Herb was old school in terms of the work ethic. He used to call us a lunch pail, hard hat group of guys. And for 6 months, we came to the rink every day prepared and focused to be the best. And we worked our tails off. And each guy that I played with, and went on to play in the National Hockey League, they all said it's the best condition, shape they've ever been in their life with the 6 months playing under her. But it wasn't easy, but, you know, success isn't easy either. Yeah, John?
I mean, I remember, you know, the Soviet hockey team at that time was kind of like the dream team, the basketball dream team. I mean, it was amazing that as a kid, I actually knew names of the Soviet players, which is just incredible. Before you played them in the Olympics, had you faced them in championship matches, championship games?
We played we played a 68-game schedule before the Olympics, traveled all across the country. But we played the B team. They
Okay.
had their minor team. We
Right.
played them 6 times and actually beat them 6 times. But right before the Olympics, the last game we played was in Madison Square Garden against the real Soviet team. This particular Soviet team had won 40 games.
Yeah.
They beat Montreal, they beat the Islanders, they beat the Rangers. Then, just prior to playing us, they beat the NHL All-Stars 6-0.
Yeah, I remember that.
So we lose 10-3
Yeah.
in Madison Square Garden. The last game of our Olympic tour was against the Soviets in Madison Square Garden. Building sold out. We're all excited we're playing the Soviets, and it was 6-0 after 1 period.
Was there an awe? You know, you hear about
Yeah.
being with the dream team, you hear about the other teams would come in, they'd be intimidated, just be excited to be in the room with them.
Yeah, I think it was a little of both. I think it was, thank God the season's finally over.
Yeah.
The team was announced just before the game, so there were still 2 guys that were gonna get cut,
Okay.
which was Ralph Cox, and Jack Hughes. So your mindset, our mindset was nowhere near what it was the second time we played them.
That's right.
But Herb brought a great point out. After we were losing 6-0, and when the game ended, he said, go back to the hotel, get a good night's sleep. We'll talk about the Olympics tomorrow when we get on the bus to go to Lake Placid. So I think it was a Friday we lost, and we're gonna open up on Sunday against Sweden. And he said to us in the locker room, remember how you played in the second and third period, not the first period when you were losing. So he turned the negative into a positive.
Right.
If he had screamed and yelled at us, would have went, oh, instead we said, well, the best team in the world, we played with them. And we never even thought about them. We didn't talk about them because they were in the other division.
Sure.
The only way we were going to see them was to win our division, finish second, which we did, second in our division, because Sweden had a better for goals against average. So we played the Soviets in the first round rather than possibly the second round. But it was never talked, the game was, even when we were getting ready to play them during the Olympic Games, it was like this game never happened. He never once mentioned, remember what happened the last time, you know, never, and I say that because if you dwell on negative things, guess what, nothing but negative thoughts are going to stay in your head. So in life in general, I found, find something positive and build off of that. Because if you think negative things, you know, you're going to be in a slump all day long. Find something, and so we built off of that. Our mindset was, we played even with the best team in the world. Let's get ready to play Sweden. Yeah.
Now, are you connected today, modern day, with the U.S. Olympic hockey team? Anything going on,
No,
even with your former players?
No, I was a broadcaster for quite a few Olympic Games for ABC.
Mhm.
I know, you know, the college players aren't playing anymore, so most of the NHL players I know very well because, you know, they're around the area or they're local kids.
Mhm.
I work at Boston University, so we get a pretty good program there, so I follow college hockey quite a bit. Follow the NHL, but I'm not involved in any way with the selection or process of the team. You know, I hope, and I've said this before, I hope the pros go back and play. People, you know, I wondered how they play against each other. You know, the question was, are they going to go after each other? And I talked to, I forget his name, he was named after, Brooks Orphick, was playing for the Pittsburgh Penguins. And I saw Brooks, I said, Brooks, if Sidney Crosby's coming down the ice, and you got to take a run at him, are you going to? He goes, absolutely. He says, I'm playing for the United States. He says, we'll settle our differences later. He says, Canada's playing for Canada, Soviets. So when I knew that they were going to challenge each other, I went, this is great for hockey because they are so good. The skill level is amazing. Someone asked me, how would the 80 Olympic team do against today's NHL players? I said, we'd get killed. I said, I'm 68. But I see these players play. I watch our BU players play, the skill level, the talent, and then the international teams now are so much better than, I mean, Germany, Switzerland are way better than they ever were before. And clearly Sweden and Finland and Russia's got, I think, you know, they used to be one country. And no, they were one, now they're 35, so they're separated into different teams, but they're still pretty good. But I'd love to see our Americans play, because we're good. We got some great players now. Yeah.
During your time, how was the recruiting process? How did that go about? Because there's so many good college hockey players.
Right. It's changed a lot, one, because more kids play the game today.
Yeah.
You know, again, I look at Boston University, we got kids from California, Texas, Arizona, Florida. You were from either Michigan, Massachusetts, or Minnesota back in the day. Maybe you get a kid from Maine or New Hampshire. But now it's you know, Austin Matthews is arguably one of the greatest Americans right now. He's from Arizona.
Yeah.
So the game has grown, not just for men, our women are even way better than they were 10 years ago. So the recruiting process is we're pounding doors, we're going, you know, again, I'll use Boston University. There are two kids in here the other day that one committed, and he's 2 years away from coming, but he's already committed now. So it's a grind. I mean, you got to pound the boards, you got to watch people, and obviously because it's Boston University or Minnesota or Boston College, they get that elite player because of the history of our programs. But the game is very, very different. You know, first of all, I've always said when I played, when I was at Boston University, there was only 2 or 3 Americans on the team. We were predominantly Canadian. BC was always local kids. You know, they always got the local kids. Other than they didn't want me, which I loved because I loved playing against BC. But I think, you know, in those years, you know, Boston University, like I said, were predominantly a Canadian. And Minnesota for years prided themselves on getting all kids from Minnesota. Now check their roster. That's changed.
How do you draft recruit out of Minnesota? Isn't that the #1 state?
Yeah, you watch these kids playing tournaments. Some of these kids are playing in the U.S. you know, hockey league. You're not going from Winthrop High School to Boston University anymore. You're not going from Arlington to Boston University or Melrose. Those days are over.
Yeah.
You go if you're really, and I help out here with Dale Dunbar. If we have a really good player, and we've had a couple, we tell them to leave. You know, you just can't stay. You're not going to get any better. And we've had a couple, you know, one kid, Chris Levine, arguably, to my opinion, maybe the best player to ever come out of Winthrop. He wanted to stay and play with his friends. And Dale said, if you stay, I'm cutting you from the team. Kidding. And Chris stayed here and went on and played went to play junior hockey, and then he went to Merrimack, and then he played quite a few years with the Orlando Solar Bears in the minor leagues. We had a kid, Mark Hamilton, if you go Marie, the gym. Boy, he was a really good player. And after his freshman year, we said, Mark, you can't stay. You got to go. So he went to prep school and he ended up captaining the University of Maine. My brother's kid was a really good player here. And after his sophomore year, we said, Danny, you got to go. You got to go. And he went to Cushing, and now, actually, this year will be his second year playing pro hockey over in Italy. So the public school kid is not going to that high school anymore. He's going to play junior, he's going to go to Cushing, he's going to go to Avon, he's going to go to Belmont Hill, and then they're going to go to another school after that. If you check the ages, Quinnipiac last year won the national championship, and they were a good team. I think they had 6 kids who were 25 years old.
Wow.
So, you know, BU, BC, they get that 18-year-old stud. Matter of fact, we got a kid at BU this year, Malcolm Scalabrini is his name. He's from Vancouver. He's only 17, and he's going to be 17 all year. That is rare. They think he's going to be the first pick in next year's draft. But I don't care how good you are at 17. You're playing against a 24-year-old guy. It's still a challenge. So you try to blend and get some young kids and older kids. But because there's so many more teams playing now, you know, a lot more college hockey teams than there were 10, 15 years ago. So you've got to pound tables. You've got to find, you know, who these kids are and where they're going. But like I said, in my years, you know, you were a local kid. If you were in Winthrop, and Winthrop's had a ton of kids play at Boston University and play college hockey. It's a different era now than it was, you know, 1974, 75.
Is there a strongest prep school for recruiting?
No, I think they're all pretty good. A lot of the good players come out of the USHL, which is you know, Omaha, Des Moines.
Yeah.
And then there's the U.S. development team now that they get the 17, 18-year-old kids from local states, and they go to high school in Michigan, but they're playing on the junior team that travels around the country. So there's all these things already set in place. But, you know, I was a PG guy, and I went to Burke Academy after high school. So it was important. I don't think I would have played at BU after, you know, without that one more year. Plus, I don't think I would have got into BU without one more year. My grades weren't very good. That's a different subject.
Was the The impression of the start of the game against these Soviets sometimes seemed to me just looking at the game, seemed kind of very political, like this was going to be almost war on ice, and of course we were in the Cold War a lot of these times. But how was it with the players themselves? Were they like nasty, or were they okay? Or
They were fine. I mean, they surprised the language they knew. They spoke English pretty well when they wanted to tell you something. But no, there was no political, and it was never once discussed with us about the political climate of the game. It was a hockey game to us. And the people in Lake Placid really looked at it a different way. The fake people in the stands waving the flag. And the USA chants that we hear now at sporting events started in that building in 1980. So, like I said, we didn't know the country was watching the way they were. But we got telegrams. As we started winning, we'd fill these walls with telegrams. So it was a good way to kill time. You go to the locker room, there'd be telegrams on your, someone dressed as the captain or regular guys on the team. You open a telegram up and put it up on the wall. And we got a telegram, and I'll never forget this, from a lady in Texas. And for me, living in Boston, I figured she was some lady woman just kind of sitting on her back porch, smoking a pipe. Because all it said was, beat those commie bastards. Nothing to do with the hockey game. But that's the way people looked at it. But Herb never allowed that to sink in with us. Because we didn't go to press conferences, because we didn't talk to the media, we didn't know what was being written or said. I remember after we beat the Soviets, I called my house, my sister answered the phone, she started screaming. And I said, well, it sounds like you're having a party, I'll call you back, and I hung up on her. She was really pissed off, because she wanted to talk to me. I thought there were people, and there were. Channel 7, Channel 5, Channel 4, they were at my house eating my mother's meatballs, and just having a hell of a lot of time. They were fun. My mom she actually came to the Olympic Games for the last 2 games. And my dad was there the whole time with Coach DeFelice, my cousin Tony. They took a Winnebago out there and drove up to watch the games. Yeah.
Mike, I'm your age, but I'm an Everett kid originally. But my mother was a hockey fanatic, so we were watching and naturally thrilled. But fast forward to 2002, Salt Lake City, when you lit the cauldron.
Yeah.
My kids were so hyped for that. We were away for a ski weekend, but my daughter's teacher, now it was under wraps that you were going to be the person lighting the cauldron. But somehow some of the teachers knew about it, and they said to the kids, your assignment for the weekend is to watch the opening ceremonies of the Olympics. There's going to be a special surprise. And wow, was it ever a surprise. We have a picture of it on the storyboard over here.
Yeah, I'll tell you the whole story. They called me about a month before the games and said, Mitt Romney, who I knew really well, because I spoke, when he ran for president, I spoke at the convention, which was pretty wild in itself. Because I'm not into politics, but Mitt Romney, I remember when he became governor, he said, Mike, if there's ever anything I can do for you, let me know. I said, Mitt, you're the governor of Massachusetts. He said, I didn't get anything done in Massachusetts. I said, but if you become president, I said, that's a different story. So they called me and said, you're going to light the cauldron, and don't tell anybody. Keep it a secret. So apparently, like 4 days before the opening ceremonies, they contacted all my teammates and decided that the whole team was going to be there to light it. So we go to rehearsal the night before the opening ceremonies. I'm in Salt Lake City. My wife's with me. No, the kids weren't with me, just my wife. And went to rehearsal, came back about 3 o'clock in the morning. And Donna goes, where have you been? I said, I told you we're going to rehearsal. We went to rehearsal, and guess who's lighting the cauldron tomorrow night? I said, I am with my teammates. She goes, right, what bar were you guys at? I said, I'm in Salt Lake City. You get a drink after 9 o'clock. So we called the house that next day, and I told the kids, I says, you gotta watch the opening ceremonies, it's gonna be pretty special. And my son Paul, he says, but Dad, it's the Valentine's Day dance. I'm going to go. I says, well, if you want to go to the Valentine's Day dance, you go to the dance. Well, apparently, maybe my daughter or son talked them into staying home because they hadn't watched, because they didn't know what. So I'm backstage, and Peekaboo Street, the great skier, and Cammy Garano, a great women's hockey player, they're going to take the torch up to the top of the steps. Mike, they're gonna get up to the top of the steps, they're gonna pause, you're gonna walk out, grab the torch, hold it up, then call your teammates, and they're gonna come out from behind the curtain. I went, okay, I can do this. So I'm backstage, they're coming up the steps, my heart's pounding. I mean, this is right after 9/11. They brought the flag in from the World Trade Center. It was a very emotional opening ceremony because the world was wondering how the United States can put on a celebration after such a tragedy. So I'm waiting, and all of a sudden Mark Johnson taps me on the shoulder and says, remember, 4 billion people are watching. He says, don't drop the torch. I said, I can do it, and we did it. But that was right up there with standing on the podium with the, you know, when we won. That was pretty cool. I still have the torch. I have the torch at home. Sell it next week, but no, I sold everything else, and I'll keep the torch. Yeah.
Mike, just a quick question. You brought up our Coach Brooks' coaching style in the 70s and 80s, and how probably wouldn't fly today as well as 727 did. I know you're not in the Patriots locker room all the time, but is there any comparisons? I mean, same generational coaches, maybe a different style back then. Coach Belichick's maybe philosophy hasn't really transitioned, but you see you're hearing similarities between the two coaches from Coach Brooks and
yeah, I think, you know, I think it's the players that play for you. You play for the Patriots, you know there's a certain way that this is going to be run. And I don't know if Bill's, you know, I've only met him a couple of times. I don't know if he's softened a little over the years. I know Jack Parker, I mean, he got 40 years at Boston University. He softened a little later, but he still had, he still was in control. But today's players are different. They don't like to get yelled at. It's just different. Don't yell at my son. You know, or my daughter, you know, what are you doing? So it's not, like I said, I help out with Dale, and it's different. But you know what, the really good players understand, this is the program, this is the way it's going to be. It's not like it's going to be a surprise. Like a kid, and I'll use Dale as an example. A kid's all of a sudden going to play for Dale Dunbar and be surprised. Because kids say, hey, this is hard. You know, he challenges us every day. So the kids know, they talk, they expect that. And I think some kids like that discipline. You know, they like to be challenged. They like to be kind of yelled at sometimes.
You know, one of the similarities you said a second ago is when you guys won the gold, and how Coach Brooks never really said, hey, listen, great job, congratulations. Even after outside of the Super Bowls, you hear Coach Belichick, you never put anyone too high or too low. Try to keep them even keeled with that.
Right.
And you can kind of hear literally say, like, not put you guys on the pedestal, but I mean, you guys were on the pedestal, but you guys still didn't give you guys the pat on the back that you guys deserved, and that was just kind of surprising.
Yeah, no, that's just the way it was, and that's, you know, like I said, that's all right. I don't have to deal with you for a couple hours. Yell at me all you want. You saw the house I grew up in. It was, it was a lot of yelling. I mean, the whole thing. Yes, sorry.
I was just gonna ask, you know how you had the roster for 20? What happened to the other one, the 21st?
Well, the last 2 players got cut right before we went to New York.
Right.
And in the movie, they highlighted Ralph Cox, who was my roommate the whole year. But what happened was Ralph and Jack Hughes, who played at Harvard, he's from Somerville. Ralph is from Braintree, played at UNH. They were all at my house because we were kind of packing up to go to New York, and then we were moving out of our apartments. And Herb called my apartment looking for Ralph and Jack Hughes. So I knew this was going down. And he said he wanted to meet with them. So they got in the car and he drove to the locker room, and Herb told them that, you know, they weren't going to be on the team. And it was hard for all of us, you know. But, you know, one shoulder saying, God, glad it wasn't me. But, you know, pissed off and disappointed. Now today, there's 26 players on the Olympic roster. In those days, you could only carry 20. So those 2 guys got cut, and you know, it was hard, especially for the Boston guys, because there were 2 Boston guys that were going to be with us. And Jack has still not taken it very well. Ralph has kind of accepted it. I see Ralph quite a bit. And it was funny, Ralph's son Dylan and my son Michael played against each other in prep school. Dylan went to Phillips Exeter, and my son went to Phillips Andover. So Ralph and I were sitting in the stands watching our kids play. It was pretty cool. But you know, he got it. He understood it. He wasn't happy with it, but I mean, you know, would we have won with Ralph Cox instead of Eric Strobel? Yeah, I think so. But you know, that's unfortunate that was the situation.
Well, the coach handled it very well, and he said, you're a great player, and I don't want that to
Well,
diminish anything.
Herb was the last player cut on the 1960 team that won a gold medal. So he knows the feeling. And I remember Herb tells a story, I don't know how true it is. He's sitting at home watching his father, him and his father are watching the 60 team on television win the gold medal, and his dad supposedly looked at Herb and said, it looks like they cut the wrong guy, the right guy.
Oh.
Yeah, I love you too, Dad. That's what Herb said, that was his story. It looks like they cut the right guy. But Herb went back and played in the 64 and I think 68 Olympic teams. But he didn't make the 60. But like I said, I mean, the whole run has been, you know, it's been pretty cool. It's been pretty special. You know, places I've been, people I've met. You know, it's all because of that kind of one moment. So you enjoy it, embrace it.
Yeah. Mike, you mentioned Winthrop, and people say, oh, Mike Eruzione, you know, if you're out of state and you're visiting people. And one thing that has impressed me is your humility. And with that, you have used your celebrity for so many charitable endeavors. I mean, I have a personal friend who says, oh, I skated with that guy. Oh, you know him, you know, and it was, I can't remember the name, anyhow, but it was a sports name I did recognize. But she said, oh, we were with the Nurses Association at that time. I'm thinking it might have been 20 years ago or so. But he was so good to come and help us raise money for our endeavor. It was some kind of health thing.
Well,
I have it written down in
pretty
my
easy.
notebook. But
It's pretty easy to be nice.
and to focus
and,
on
you
the
know,
positive.
My mom always taught us about giving back.
Mm.
And I never would imagine I'd be able to give back the way, you know, I have. My charities foundation, we've raised, you know, over $500,000. We've given a lot back to the community. Just had my golf tour at the course tournament the other day, so we'll find a way for come Christmas to buy presents for families, food Thanksgiving. You know, my wife and I argue about this, so I have fun with it. I don't think an athletic event should change who you are. I'm very happy with who I was before. So why all of a sudden become different? Why change? Why move things? Remember after the Olympics, you gotta go to LA to get into acting and movies. I'm like, I think I like Winthrop. But like, yeah, I firmly believe it's a lot easier to be nice than an asshole. You know? So when somebody sends me a book or wants an autographed picture, yeah, absolutely. I have no problem doing that. It's easy to do. You know, like I said, it's easy to be nice. And you know, I don't look at myself as a celebrity, and it's another funny story. I did a speaking engagement in Maine, and Ralph Cox was up there with his wife, and my wife hadn't seen Ralph in a while, said, why don't you come to the speaking engagement with me? And Donna never goes on any of these things, unless I'm in Hawaii or the Bahamas or something. And I think I'll come on this one, but, you know, Plymouth, Maine was not one she was thinking of going to. So I said, why don't you come, we'll have dinner with them. So we went up there, I did the speaking engagement, she stood in the background after, like she normally does, with people coming up and talking to me, so we went home, and my daughter says, what was it like? She goes, I was tired of hearing people tell your father how great a guy he is. I said, I wanted to tell him I know him. I've been with him for 50 years. Let me tell you what he's really like. So she's not coming on any more appearances. But, like I said, it's been fun. Yeah, John.
If you guys weren't interviewed for the movie, who were the consultants?
I think Herb was very involved with it.
He was, okay.
We always I tell people it's the Herb Brooks story and we're a part of it.
I see.
I think the HBO documentary is better than the movie,
Okay.
if you've never seen that.
Yeah.
So that was done really well, because they interviewed us, they talked to us, they interviewed some of the Russian players.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you still keep in touch with the team?
Yes. We were together 2-3 weeks ago. We did one of those private signing in Minnesota. We signed some, I think we have a contract with this company, so we signed 1,000 items, pictures, posters, and things like that. And then we do a fantasy camp in Lake Placid. So we were there in March. About 15 of us went back for the fantasy camp. There's only 18 of us left. Unfortunately, two of my teammates have passed. It's hard to get 18 guys together, but when we do, we are the most immature. No, it's really comical. If you saw the emails that we sent back and forth to each other, you would think we were 12 years old. But that's, you know, that's just the, you know. And then now that I got my store up there and taking a lot of abuse from my teammates over your store, I said, your jersey's in there. You can sell your jersey. Nobody wants to buy your jersey. So we've had a lot of fun with a lot of things over the years. There's a bond and a friendship and a love and respect that we have for each other. You don't go through what we went through and accomplish that moment without everybody being on board. And you know, like I said, even now it's a pretty good bond. And you know, who's fat, who's bald, who's divorced. It's pretty funny with the conversations. What happened to you? Any other questions? Yeah, Jonathan, go ahead.
Keep asking. Speaking of paraphernalia, is there paraphernalia currently in museums, Hall of Fames, or something?
I think some of my teammates have. I think at what's the big museum in Washington? Yeah, Smithsonian. I think they got one of my teammates' medals. Although two of my teammates sold their medals years ago. And I had some stuff in the Italian Sports Hall of Fame, but I took it out.
Okay.
You probably, maybe you know the story, don't know the story. I decided 10 years ago to sell all my memorabilia. Other than the gold medal will never be sold while I'm alive. If I die tomorrow, my son Paul will sell that thing in a heartbeat. The ring we got from the Olympics that was made for us will never be sold while I'm alive. But everything else, my skates and the stick from the Finland game, I just got back. I'm going to sell those shortly.
Okay.
Now, I don't need the money. I'm not one of those athletes, but when I sold all my stuff, I think I got 1.6 million for my jersey. Some guy paid $5,000 for my credential. Like, I'm going to wear my credential. And my two jerseys, the Soviet jersey, I think went for $450,000. Like, I'm going to wear it. You know. So what I did was, I got all the money, and I put money into my own foundation, and all three kids bought houses with the money, and we still have some left over somewhere. I think my wife knows where that is. But I sold it for the right reasons, not the wrong reason. You know, financially things are fine. But like I said, all my hockey equipment was in a closet up in the attic. Like, $15,000 for my hockey gloves. I didn't wear them anymore. Plus they smelled. Don't ever. Oh yeah. She washed them once, and I said, "Don't ever wash my hockey equipment." I said, "That is an unwritten. You want to wash the kids' hockey stuff? Wash theirs. You're not washing mine." So you open the hockey bag. I was there for a few years. So
you mean someday these kids will be able to sell all their tournament hockey? They should
save all the stuff. Because there are crazy people out there that'll buy it.
Question?
Yes, I'm originally from Czechoslovakia.
Okay.
So, team, didn't play well, didn't make it to the round, but I appreciate being here with you, and I'm a big hockey fan.
Oh, wow, okay.
Well,
they have this
Czech team did in Czechoslovakia, now it's Czech Republic and Slovakia. They have guys in Bruins playing Chara, Slovakia, and Krejci and Pasternak.
Yes.
We have great hockey country, probably next to soccer. Soccer will be slightly more popular, but ice hockey is a big deal.
Yes, we had the Stastny brothers then.
The thing, 1980, when you beat these Bolsheviks bastard, we were under the Soviet Union heavy boot. We were celebrating like that was amazing accomplishment, and because the Soviets were all very arrogant, cocky, and always played Czechoslovakia. Sometimes we beat them. We had a good national team, but they're very arrogant, and we were so happy.
The only team that anybody thought could beat the Soviets that year was the Czechs. Because of the Stastny, the Peter Anton, Marian Stastny, and the rivalry was so intense between the two countries. But their goaltending was a little suspect.
Yeah, so it was very big event even there in 1980, and it was a difficult time, the political circumstances around, and we were happy for you, and they didn't show too much of it on the TV media. Was like, it didn't like to be Soviet were humiliated generally, they were expected to win. But we knew you were, the way you were enthusiastic, playing nice bunch. Same thing happened in 1960 probably.
Right.
They had very strong team, they beat Canada, everything. So we knew we had a shot at it. We felt it with the team gonna make it. Definitely to finals for gold run,
Thank you.
And I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Winthrop's great town. So it's agreed.
It's over. I just told stories about you too.
Mostly good.
Yes.
Hi, I know you talked a lot earlier about how hockey is a lot different than it was back then. And is there any advice you can give to the young players who are pulled in a million directions and things they must do and need to do to get these chances?
Well, first of all, I'm a believer in playing different sports. I played hockey, obviously, but I played more baseball than anything. And I played high school football, and Mr. Ciotis in the back can verify I played a lot of basketball too. So I'm a believer in that. And to me, it's just, if you have a passion for something, just go out and work harder. You don't have to play hockey year round, but you can go out in the backyard and shoot pucks. You don't have to, be on the ice every single day. I think it's, if you want to work on your game, there's other ways to work on it, but other than just having to spend all that money to play. And it's hard. There's a lot of great players out there. But, you just, again, I'm old school. You work hard, good things happen to good people. And if you work hard, good things are going to happen. I'm not going to say you're going to play in the National Hockey League, because that's very hard to do. But you might be able to play college hockey, you might be able to play high school hockey, and you might be able to travel, and go to these great places and play in some great tournaments. But that's what I'm all about. I'm about just, you want to be the best, you got to work hard. I've never been a person who's successful because they're lucky. People are successful because they work hard. In whatever, whether it's, and then and I wasn't one of these. I'm a big believer in education and schoolwork. We take a kid at Boston University now. It's $78,000 to go to school. You better be in the classroom. Plus you got to be smart enough to get in. I can tell you how many kids want to come, and we can't get them into school. They'll go somewhere, but they're not coming to our place. So it goes hand in hand. You want to be a really good hockey player, you better have good grades.
Did you hear that?
I would not get into Boston University today, trust me. Yeah.
Was the Hobie Baker one you're doing?
No. The Hobie Baker came out in 1981, and the first winner was Neil Broughton, who played on our team in 1980. He went back to college after the Olympics. Then he went on and had a great NHL career. Yes?
What's your feeling about women's hockey and the movement?
I think it's outstanding.
Yeah.
The growth of women's hockey and the skill level. I mean, I see it at Boston University. We get a pretty good program where we are. The only problem with women's hockey right now is there's only 2 countries that really play it at a high level. So it's the U.S. and Canada every year. U.S. and Sweden and Finland, they don't spend the money on their women athletes like we do in this country. So there are some good Swedish players and Finnish players, but the depth that we have is way better. And I've said this publicly. When the Olympic Games come around, the best team in the world is either the U.S. and Canada, and the next 2 best teams are the girls who didn't make the U.S. team or the Canadian team. So we could put our second team in the Olympic Games and Canada could put their second team and probably fight for the bronze. But I don't know if it'll ever change, because again, Europe looks at women's sports a lot differently than we look at it in this country.
Thank you.
Any questions? You guys got any questions, Leo?
No.
Good stuff.
Okay.
Well, Mike, we have some books. We have some people who purchase books ahead of time.
Whatever you have.
So if you want to take this seat, I'll give you a pen, and they can line up first, and I'm selling books on this side. So thank you so much.
I'm not dropping it off the check if you want to. Because there's no money in books. If it becomes a movie, then there's money.